Hi, everybody. Welcome to Drag Racing's Golden Era. My name is Randy. I'm the editor-in-chief here. We're so glad, as always, that you're joining us again this evening for another in our Legends of the Sport interview series. Tonight, as always, we have some cool guests, and tonight is no exception. Tonight, Alison Lee is joining us of the famed Jim and Alison Lee Top Fuel team. We're going to hear all about the life in drag racing and where she's at now and how things are going. We might even talk about Bobby and Tyler on the nostalgia circuit. So it's now my pleasure to welcome Alison Lee to the program. Hi, Alison. We're really glad you're here.
Thank you, Randy. It's great to be here. It's an honor.
Well, as I tell everybody, we always start these interviews the same way, and it's always, where did this start for you? Now, I'm assuming, was Jim a hot rodder when you first met him, or did that take a while?
Well, street rodder, yes. Yeah, a hot rodder back in the 58, 59. Everything was done on the street after 8 p.m. at night. If you knew the right piece of road to go to, you call your friends up and they all meet you down there and air up and have fun.
Well, and that's why the NHRA came about, right? Because get these guys off the street and get them on a drag strip.
Right.
So when did you meet him? When did you get I guess, when did you first start dating Jim?
I met him on a blind date, believe it or not. I was showing my horse one day at a horse show, and I knew beforehand that I had a blind date. So I got a call, as I came home to change. And they said, do you know where you're going for your blind date? You're going up to a neighborhood little town called Orleans. It's 15 miles from Warrenton. And he'll be at this party. Just ask for Jim Lee. That's how it started. When I got there, I said, anybody know where this Jim Lee fella is? And they said, yeah, he's out in the middle of that pond in that boat fishing. I went, okay. So I went down to the pond. I said, hey, are you Jim Lee out there in that boat? And he said, yep. I said, I think I'm your blind date. I'm Alison.
Wow. Okay. That's a heck of a start to all of it. Okay. So when did you two decide, hey, let's go try some racing? When did that happen for you guys? Pretty early on?
Oh, yeah. Right after we were married. Yep. Neither of us had very much money. I worked at a computer firm, not a computer, but a missile building firm called Melpar. And I was an engineering aide. I tallied up the costs for whatever they were making for the government. I had a chief over top of me. All he did was give me all the list of parts, how many, and I was to figure out the price for this contract. So my pay was pretty good. Jimmy worked somewhere else. Let's see, I've forgotten exactly where. And yeah, after we did a little bit of that out there on the Route 211 street racing, it was time to find a little car. So he found a little 32 Chevy from a cute little grandmother up in Harpers Ferry, West Virginia. And he wooed her and said how he loved her little car and could he buy it. He bought it. And she said, I hope you enjoy riding and driving it. It starts every time. Well, little did she know, about a week later, that little 32 Chevy wouldn't have any fenders on it. She was stripped down. She had no hood on it. The motor was out of it. And he was busy building a Pontiac motor to go in it.
Wow. Okay, so Pontiac, that's actually part of this whole story. You guys are running a Pontiac. There was, that we hadn't come along with the 392s becoming popular yet. So you guys were out there on the edge. Everybody was running what you brung back then, weren't they?
That's right. That's right. And we had an Oldsmobile short block laying in the basement. So we shortly after that decided to go to Oldsmobile, kind of brother sister type thing, but with just a 4-barrel. It was nothing fancy, it was just like a street motor transplanted into that 32 Chevy with a LaSalle transmission and a better rear end and some little race tires. That's how you all got started.
Well, okay, so I got to ask you, during that period of time, what drag strips were even around to be able to take this to, or were you still street racing at that point?
No. There was one called Summer Duck Raceway. Believe it or not, it's still in use, I think. And it was just south of Warrenton where I lived, Jimmy lived. So we'd go down there. You would race a multitude of similar type cars, but not all the same class. Classes sort of vague back then, but it
Well,
was fun.
so you did have a place to race anyway. I know this is early on. You know, the NHRA is just trying to establish itself at this point, and I don't even know if there was anything other than the nationals yet at this point. Was there?
And now that's a good question. I don't remember when the first national, where was the closest one? It was
The
right
Well,
after
I believe
something
the
like,
first nationals was what, in Kansas or Oklahoma or Tulsa, was it? I forget where it was, in the middle
yeah,
of the country.
yeah, we had no thoughts of that. We were just local, and we'd go over to Manassas when they opened. That was a nice little quarter-mile drag strip. Summer Duck was eighth mile. So you got started eighth mile, and
Well, I saw somewhere along the way here that you guys were racing in Division One. You know, in the middle '60s, you guys were Division One. But I just got off the phone with Mike Couch, Buster Couch's son, and he was telling me you guys actually won the title in Division Two at some point later on down the road. So were you guys Division One or Division Two? I'm kind of confused about that.
well, according to the NHRA map, we're listed, Virginia's listed both, but the meets are closer, the five back in those days in the 60s, to go up to New Jersey, to Atco, New Jersey, and to, let's see, where were they all? I guess York, Pennsylvania had one. Hagerstown, no, Hagerstown didn't. Oh, Connecticut Dragway,
Oh yeah.
Frank Marotta. And then later on, of course, it was Epping later. But Division Two, yeah, after we won 3 Division Ones, we said, let's go down there and see what those boys have for us in Division Two. We were feeling kind of cocky. You know how it is. Let's go see what they're all about. So down the road we went. We started off, I think, in Orlando or somewhere. DeSoto Dragway down in Florida. Forgotten all the different drag strips now.
So
I mean,
you're going up against what? Pete Robinson and Garlitz and all them guys that are down there in Division
no,
Two?
they didn't run many points meets. No,
Okay.
no, they did. But the traveling guys did, because for the finals at the meet that I think Mike Couch was talking about, the Division Two finals was Gainesville.
Yeah.
So we're talking further on. We're talking, I think Bobby Hilton was on driving that, and that would be 69.
Okay.
Well, he came thinking he could pick up some easy points back east in Division Two. And we said, no way, Jose. California, you think you're so good? So we laid it on and we won that race in the finals. Do you think there was rivalry back in those days? You read drag news back in those days, you'd get all psyched up because all the ads were on California cars when the records were set. And it was so neat when we set the record. It was like Ed Pink and Ingle Cams and all put those ads in. I thought, wow, this looks good. East Coast Cars got the NHRA record.
What what did you call them guys back then? The West Coast hot dogs, whatever it was.
Yep.
I got some friends of mine here, the Tom Hoover, Jerry Newman and Greg Barta bought the Tom Hoover car, and they've got this little slogan on their shirt about the West Coast guys. I can't repeat it on air here, but it isn't complimentary. They all hated the West Coast. Well, so let's step back a little bit. You guys are running. You guys didn't immediately go to a top fuel dragster. You're running gas classes and all that stuff. When did that transition happen to
Right.
top fuel?
Practically right away. It seemed like we only had that little gas car for about a year, that little coupe. That wasn't fast enough. So we called Pat Bilbo in Pennsylvania. Our first car was a Pat Bilbo. What was it? Maybe 95 inches, 96-inch chassis. Had a big bottom rail, like a piece of pipe that comes in your basement with the water. It's a 2-inch piece of pipe with a little support under it, And but it did the job, it ran good. And by then there were a lot of dragsters back here, but most of them were West Coast made. So we had that Bilbo car first. That had to be decided for about a year or so. Then we went to Logie. We had Logie build us a car because we'd been to Indy and we'd seen Connie Coletta's car that was a Logie car. And remember, he had that little ad thing on the back behind his cockpit with the hatchet and all the ones and check marks when he was knocking those guys off. I said, that's a good looking car with that rolled bar and all. So we got a Logie car next. That lasted a year or two. In fact, it crashed with Jimmy driving up in Media, Pennsylvania. don't remember what year it was maybe 64, 5. It broke one of the gears in the rear end because you didn't have locked rear ends back then, like a spider gear.
Yeah.
And it made a right-hand turn on a match race against Red Lang. And when it made that right turn, the front wheel luckily did not hit the back of his car. And then it changed lanes immediately. In other words, just made a sharp right turn. I knew something had broken in the back end, and it was scary. And it did roll, tumble, did about 4 flip overs.
Was Jim okay?
Yes, severe concussion, but he was okay.
Okay, so I'm assuming shortly after that accident is when Jim decided it might be time to hire a driver to sit in the seat here.
Later, after we ordered a Don Long, yes, that was yes. Yeah, because it took him well over a month to get over that. And the car was folded up almost like a U when I brought it back on that open trailer. We tried to cover it that night with a tarp so we wouldn't be distraction of the other drivers on this 2-lane road down from Pennsylvania to where we live in Virginia. And we buried that poor chassis in the woods. When we sold that house, the new house owner said, "Hey, we found something funny looking. It looked like a race car. It was bent in half like an envelope." We had acknowledged, yeah, it was the only one that we crashed.
Well, so okay, let's move forward to that. Don Long, Ed Pink motor.
Yes.
Anna body. You guys have the best of the best coming off the West Coast now. And wow, I've seen pictures of this car. That was just a beautiful slingshot dragster, just beautiful.
It was state of the art. And it came right back here. And after our driver initially ran it at a Bakersfield meet, I think it was 66 or 67. And it was Tom Reese back here and from Baltimore. He qualified second run there. Beautiful run. I think just went straight as an arrow, 392 iron block or whatever. Just performed beautifully. I mean, right out of the crate practically. We were at Pink's for about a week before the race to pick up the car, put in the motor, learn what wrenches we needed to use since we didn't have Oldsmobile. And right out to Bakersfield we went. And as the sheet showed us for Sunday morning, I think we were number 8 qualifier, something like that. It was amazing. We had to run, I think, 22 or something of Don Perdeau in the Blaney Ford car, also out of Pink's shop. Oh, a little rivalry there. I remember going to start line. We were watching on our lane and watching Bub's stage and all that. We looked over and there was Ed Pink directly in the middle between his 2 cars whose motors he'd built. I couldn't show a preference. And it was a good close race till that cylinder wall broke in number 1 cylinder on that Chrysler. And it spewed out water. We lost, but it was a head-to-head, nose-to-nose, good race.
And that would have been probably 64 car field too, right? So
it was. I still have the list of that 64 cars that were posted, I guess, in National Dragster. Yeah. And you see all the name of all the great guys that were qualified out there.
So that wasn't Hank Westmoreland that was in the car then for that meet? Or
no,
was it?
No, Bub Reese. But after that, Bub wanted to go with somebody else. He'd already more or less had that contract figured out or whatever. So we called Ed Pink, said, "Got a driver out there to fly back here and do 5 points meets?" He said, "Sure." That was Hank Westmoreland.
Okay.
We came to our first points meet up at Island Dragway and won that right off the bat. And at the third meet at York, Pennsylvania, he set the record.
Yeah. And you remember what it was, a 688, right? Then that was on. And if I remember right, I read this someplace that Goose and those guys on the West Coast were struggling to get 695 at that point. So you guys really closed the door on them.
for the moment, yes. But the funny thing was, when the record got recorded by Darwin Dahl or sent to California to the headquarters, apparently there was a lot of ruffling going on back there, ruffled a lot of feathers. So it was determined that perhaps the clocks weren't exactly right on that York Dragaway, which was an airport runway. Maybe it wasn't but 1310. All right. they'll have to back it up at Indy, the next race, which was like 3 weeks later, totally different conditions. Go to Indy and try to back up the 688. And we did. It was amazing. The first run out at Indy, we had that motor all jacked up to where we thought it should be, and it pulled the front end way up and dangled it for a little too long for back in those days. You didn't have wheelie wheels and stuff. So, Hank lowered it down, came back in the pits, and we'd already had a piece of pipe filled with lead, in it. It was about 20 inches long and about a 2.5-inch diameter piece of pipe, probably weighed 15 pounds or better. So we had clamps that Don Long had made for that for us. And we clamped that also next to the one that was already on the axle. So we had double weights on that axle up front. And we came to the line later the day or the next day, Friday, whatever day it was. And as Hank staged, I looked around behind me, and everybody that was anybody in Top Fuel was right behind me, looking. So I looked at him, and I nodded up and down, said, better look, because we might do it. And sure enough, we did it, a 688 at whatever the speed was. Amazing. I mean, it was like a fairy tale. I mean, you hear that today, and it's like, how did all that happen? But it did. It did.
Well, and you guys, to do that to the West Coast guys, that had to have really bitten them. And just for those of you out there that don't know this, Hank Westmoreland went on to drive the Beachcomber. Yep. And he also at one point drove the USA 1 turbine that our friend the Stone Age man drove for a while, the USA Turbine 1 car. So Westmoreland didn't just do this, he did a bunch of other things. But you guys went on that year to be Division 1 champs, as I recall, with Westmoreland in the seat, right?
Went on out to Tulsa. I don't remember what happened in Tulsa. I don't have a clipping of the results in my scrapbook, so I can't remember. I need to find somebody that has a National Dragster clipping on that meet to tell me, did we lose second round, third? How far did we go? I don't know.
There you go. The call is out. All you people out there that have this, let's get it into me. You got my email address, so send it in. We'll get that figured out. So 67, you guys are Division 1 champs with Westmoreland in the seat. Did Tom Rayleigh comes in here at some point? When did that happen? 68, 69, somewhere in there?
68, the next year. Yep.
Okay.
I mean, it was fun flying Hank in and out, but, Tom was highly respected, and he'd driven a Chevy dragster against us in a lot of the races that year. So we asked him, yeah, you want to drive for us? Yeah. And he drove for us for about 8 years or so. It's wonderful.
Yeah, it was
he was like family. He was like family.
Well, and that's one of the things I love about, the history of this sport. It was like a big family out there. I mean, I go to events like Gibbs Nitro Revival now, and I see it's just like a big family reunion. It's so cool.
Yeah.
So at this point, you are now becoming more and more involved in the tuning of this car. And, I guess I got to ask you this. How did the guys in the sport respond to that? You've got a lady tuner on this car. That had to be unusual back then.
I'm sure it was. We all talked. We were all friendly with one another. I can't tell you what they felt. I have no idea.
Okay.
I was honored they came over, chit-chatted, or looked over my shoulder at what we were doing. I thought that was pretty cool. I mean, at first with that first car, I was just told to put water in a little round hole at the front of each head. I was told it was a head on that motor. I could do that. I knew nothing about taking spark plugs in or out or looking at them. I must say that Car Mercedes and Gartlett's, the few times they came to Capitol Raceway to do match races, we would be racing like a little 4, 5, 6 car field, and I'd run over to them and show them the plugs from those Oldsmobile motors. I said, what do you think? What do you think? Are these too white, too gray? What would you do? And I learned a lot from them. I knew nothing about a motor. I was a horse rider. I didn't know anything about motors, but I learned. It was fun learning all new different stuff. It was fun.
So and then yeah, go ahead.
Later on, of course, when you're talking about setting records, by then I was walking in the trailer and grabbing we had a plastic made tray that would hold the 8 pistons it was slots for the rods to hang down and the appropriate stuff that a handle on it. I'd come out of that trailer carrying that plastic. It's now metal for most guys. It sits on the injector, and reach and get the pistons out of the tray and slide them into Jimmy, tap them in. I mean, that was just something I learned to do, and it just came naturally. It was fun.
Well, so I did read, I think it was Tyler who I read put up, I think 4 posts on Jalopy Journal where he was talking about the history of grandma and grandpa, and it was some neat stuff. And I did see that in '69 you took more of the responsibilities of tuning that car.
Yes.
So, and that's what I was curious. I was just I know it was a tough road for some of the ladies that were in the sport at the time. I'm just wondering I'm just curious how that went for you.
Oh, it was great. It was great. To be kind of on an equal, it made me quite proud, because Jimmy was the underneath man. I was like what you'd call the head man, the top man. Jim and Tom Rayleigh would lift the blower off in the old days. That was a little much for me, lifting the blower. Manifold, that was a cinch, the little air wrench we had, and off it would come. And that was an improvement, man. Boy, we got those air wrenches, those fancy tools. Man, we were uptown.
Well, so Tom Rayleigh steps in here, and I one of the things that I saw that Tyler had put up on the Jalopy Journal was that you guys were standing on the starting line in '69 when Mulligan had his bad wreck. How did that affect all of you guys for the rest of that race? I know that I've talked to a lot of race. I remember talking to Carl Olson one time, and he said, you just put that out of your mind because you got a job to do. Get in your car. You don't even think about what's going on down there. How'd that affect you guys?
It affected me, and I know it affected Jimmy. Tom Rayleigh, I can't speak for. I wonder if he was able to put it out of his mind because he was so consistent, always out there at all the races. But every time we'd go and he'd stage, I'd say a little prayer, keep us safe. That's all you can say. You have to think about that for an instant. And of course, we lost our dear friend Bobby Edwards, who was runner-up at Columbus to Shirley that year that we'd sold that one car to in the '76 car, I guess it was. And he was killed right there in Maple Grove when it did a wheel stand, and not that big a wheel stand, 4-footer, I guess. But it came down hard. He tried to let it down gently, but the clutch had started locking up, and it was a hard landing. It bent the front end, hard left, and that car just aimed right for the left guardrail. And that's when Maple Grove and all the tracks only had a single guardrail. And of course, the dragster went under it. And I was right there within 50 feet of where it happened, coming down this return row, sitting in our car, and Tom and Jimmy were in the back. And I'll never forget that. I think of Bobby Edwards all the time. We've lost so many great guys.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know if it's the same for you guys, but I know with Carl telling me that, you just have to put it out of your mind because you got a job to do and you got to get up there and make the next run. Once they clean it up, it's time to go again. So,
I know.
Okay. So '69, you guys take division. Here's where I asked Mike about this. You guys take the Division II title in 1969.
Oh, okay.
So did you guys, no, wait a minute. I'm sorry. I take that back. So you got your second Division I title. That's what it was in 1969 with Rayleigh at the helm.
Yes.
And now we move on to '70, and Rayleigh's running 663, 653 at Dallas. Were those more records again?
Yes. Yes, Dallas was. Yes. That was our final one, I think. That was the heartbreaker race for all of us. Jim, I, especially Tom Rayleigh. '69, we'd started off with a brand new Don Long car, a little bit longer, a little bit lighter than the former car. And we'd had a good season. We get out to Dallas, qualified number 1, if I'm not mistaken, with that 53. And I don't know whether we backed it up or not. Doesn't really matter. The 53 was like awesome. And first round, number 16 car sitting over there. I've forgotten who it was. I think it was a Chevy from Ohio. A Chevy. And the red bulb came on. Oh, we all felt so bad. You have your car and it's ready to go. It's ready to be a giant killer. And then the red bulb came on.
Okay. So this would have been Great Expectations 2, is that correct?
Yeah. Yes.
Well,
Yeah.
I had the thrill, and I'm going to pull this picture out here. I was down at Beach Bend,
Oh, look. Yes.
and the people that owned the Pugly truck wanted this made into a poster for him, but this is the car restored.
Wow. That's cool. That
It's a
is so
beauty.
cool. Uh-huh.
Were you guys involved in the restoration of that, or did that happen without
No,
you guys?
no, Brian Beatty did it all.
Okay.
Yep. Yep.
And the only reason I brought that up is because I just was online this morning and I came across that car is for sale.
Yes.
The
I
people
heard it
who own it
was.
are trying to sell it. Now, I
Yes.
sell my house and everything I own. Maybe I could buy it.
That'd be great.
Okay,
Go
so
for it. Go for it. Go for your dreams.
well, problem is that engine would explode in my face the first time I try to start it. So
No, I think they got it softened up for cackling. It's not pepped up for drag racing at this
okay.
point in time.
Well, so a 653 at Dallas, but 1971, here comes an event that I really need to ask you about. You guys are hanging out with Richard Nixon, is that correct?
No, not exactly. Okay, we get the telegram to come to the automotive part of his. He's going to have well-known people bring their cars, four of us, into this half circle there on the back side of the White House and to a reception. And to get votes. Okay. So Garland was supposed to go, but he had something else. So they must have sent the telegram to us. I thought it was a joke. I called them and confirmed that we got this telegram. You sure it was for us? Yes, yes. And it's for Mr. Lee. And I went, oh, so. So you want to hear the funny part? We get all unloaded, and there's Mario Andretti's. There's the Lotus car. There's Richard Petty, and then there's us. And I'm standing by the car after it's unloaded. They were all aimed just the right way, for the press. And the press was over there on the grass, facing the front ends of the car. And this Secret Service man comes up and taps me on the shoulder and said, "You need to go over there with the press. You're over with the press." I I knew you would laugh. I didn't have Gloria Steinem behind me to stand up for me or somebody else. Oh man, so I had to stand over by the press. No, I wasn't allowed to go in the White House. Besides, they wouldn't have had cufflinks for me or a golf ball.
Wow.
Boy. So it was the Jim Lee dragster who was at the White House.
I see.
And they told me I could get over there with the rest of the crews and handle the tow truck.
Oh man. I've seen a few pictures of this. Jim's all dressed up in a nice suit.
Yeah.
Jackie Stewart is there.
Yes,
Yeah, Mario
yes.
Andretti. It's pretty neat pictures.
Yes.
So
It's
this, of course,
it's just as good as I wasn't there, because what would Nixon have said? Like, who are you? What are you doing here? If I said I'm a mechanic, you'd say, I don't believe it.
well, and for those of you who don't remember, this was actually before Nixon got himself in trouble. So things were still pretty cool here at the White House.
Yeah.
And you know what's funny, Allison, is one of the first memories that I have as a young man. I was born in 1967. One of the first memories of any news event I have is Richard Nixon standing at the podium saying, "People should know if their president's a crook." Well, I'm not a crook. That is one of the first things I remember on the news. How weird is that?
hadn't heard that. Oh, wow, that's too funny.
So were you guys one of the last holdouts here to go to a rear engine car? Did you sort of hang on, or did you switch with everybody else?
Yeah, I guess we were a little late on switching. We hadn't saved enough coins to switch yet. Well, James and Diane were getting ready to go off to college.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to think down the road a little bit. And we didn't have any extra hay fields to sell hay off of, or extra cattle to sell that winter. So we postponed it a while, yes.
Yeah. Well, I do know that this guy that's up here behind me, John Wiebe, was probably one of the last holdouts to switch over to a rear engine car. And I actually saw him come through Great Lakes Dragaway, which is my hometown track. I live here in Wisconsin. So I saw him come through just after he'd gotten into that rear engine car. And he didn't last long after that. But anyway, so what did you guys get? Did you guys get a Woody chassis, or what did you get for your rear? All right, engine? So you guys get, let's just put it this way. You guys have a rear engine car now at this point. Is Rayleigh still in this car?
No, no. We went to, well, Rayleigh came to a meet for us. Of course, it was driving for us up in Maple Grove in the spring. And it was like a 8-car pro drag racing circuit race, with 8 cars from nearby multi-states. And on the final round, a car that was driven in the other lane by a driver, after the finish line, crossed over and ran up and through our chutes into our dragster with Tom Rayleigh and demolished pushed it towards the guardrail and everything, and just ruined the chassis. I mean, it was a big bump, a big, huge push. Yeah. And Tom, it took about 3 weeks before he could even sit down. Back then, the Don Long car had a one single bar that followed your backbone down and under the seat. That hit his tailbone, and he couldn't sit or anything. He was in such pain. And so we sort of retired for that year afterwards. It wiped us out. I mean, the whole car was twisted up in a mess. And so I guess our first dragster rear engine might have been a Stebbins car, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, Stebbins. Because later on it was Guillory. He did the fancy one with all the fancy smooth side panels, body, fins, and all. Stebbins, yeah.
Okay. So
we had Ted Wolf in the meantime, and then we had Hank, Dale Thera. We had 7 drivers. Wow. I should have brought some notes.
So
I don't talk about the old days that often.
Well, Butch Osmond comes in here at some point, right?
Right. Later. Yes. Bobby Hilton drove the rear engine Stebbins car, which was an awesome looking car. And he won Division II championship in that car the very first time. So I think it was our best running rear engine rail. If we had one in front of it, it never performed as well as the Guillory car, because we ran it most of the time without those big side fins. It was very heavy with all these extra body panels. No, but it looked bad. It really looked bad. And of course, the first major win that we had with that car was Bristol, the $10,000. At Rockingham in '89, and then 69. What do I say? And in '70 at Bristol with a $20,000 win. Yeah. Yes.
Well, so Osmond, Bobby Hilton comes in here. You've got a whole bunch of drivers that go through here at some point. Am I correct about this? Your one national event win on the NHRA trail was the Spring Nationals in Columbus. Is that correct?
No, we never won it. Never won a national event for NHRA.
Okay. Bobby
Edwards was runner-up to Shirley that won that year, but I can't give you the year. It was the year that the bad storm came through and it took all our awnings and flipped them over the trailers, and we all had to come home. We came back the next weekend to finish the meet and all that. I don't know what year it was, but that was Bobby Edwards. Yeah, we got best appearing car with that Lester Guillory car up in Englishtown, but never won a meet. So we have Oscars for the best appearing.
Well, okay, so let's talk about Bobby here for a minute, because he's part of the family now.
That's right.
I was down. Where was I? Was it 2 years ago down at Beach Bend? We were joking. I'm like, I remember Mike Couch said to me, he goes, I'm surprised Jim didn't take a shotgun after you when you were dating Diane. He goes, I warned you, man. He's part of the family now. So he went from driving to not driving. Now he's part of the family.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
I guess so Bobby's in the seat. Then he's out of the seat. And
he was there for 2 years.
Was he?
Yes. And actually the best 2 years of the Jim and Alison Lee late racing, really. Butch Osmond took over for the next 2 years, but we never that's in drag racing. You hit these highs and all of a sudden, boy, you're down on the low. And we got on the low with Butch Osmond we tuned it the same and everything, but we never seemed to get to the finals. It was one of those weird things.
You think it was? You think it was because of the driver? I mean, as a driver, does make a bit of a difference in the car.
Good, yeah, good. I don't know. I won't say. I don't know.
Well, I did an interview with Jeb Allen about 2 weeks ago, and I know that the Lee name kept coming up. He said, those guys were so instrumental in helping me out and being there for me, and just being out on the road. He was so grateful for the help that you guys offered him.
Thanks. Good. That's what it's all about. Oh
Yeah.
yeah. It's all the friendships. I mean, I feel my greatest friend and girl in drag racing is Kim LaHaye. I mean, I'd go over there and visit with her and watch her work on a clutch. I mean, I never worked on the clutch. I was the black book person who opened the black book, changing nozzles, pistons. What are we doing? Write it down, and all that. Air pressure, the tires, and all that. And she was in those clutches, boy. She and Dick, that was an amazing team, father daughter.
Yeah, yes, it was, and they've got the record to prove it too. So what was the reason that you guys finally stepped away? Was it money? Was it sponsorship? I mean, big sponsor money was coming into the sport at this point,
and we couldn't have one. I would have thought we would have caught one.
Yeah,
but really, it might have been for the best. I mean, we had our good run, and you wonder, with James Diane getting ready to go to college, we probably would not have put as much into the racing as we had been. So therefore, you wonder if your performance will go down. Well, we never got a sponsor. So we had that Army sponsorship in 73, 74. That gave a taste to us of what it could be. But, I can't see Jim and Alison Lee troop traipsing around to 20 or 21 meets, across the country.
Yeah.
That just, and to still have a farm with cattle and all that. You just can't do it.
Yeah. So
really.
I guess, you guys step away from racing, and Jim and Alison Lee disappear for a while from the scene, but all of a sudden there's Alison Lee again, her name out there with the nostalgia stuff. Where did that idea come from?
We kept it a secret from Jimmy, Came from Bobby and Tyler.
Oh, did it really?
And Nanny. And Nanny was pushing a little bit back here. Quietly. Covering the mouth, with phone. So that it wouldn't be heard by Mr. Jim. Oh,
yeah. Well, there was probably 15 years between when you guys stopped and when this happened, right? Were you pretty intricately involved with this when it first got going? I don't remember what was the year that you guys got into this. Around 2000 maybe, or later than that?
Oh, yeah. Tyler was born in 2000. It was 2014 when they found a car. In 2015, he got his license down at Bowling Green. And that's when, of course, Jimmy knew about it then. And so for his first rather big race, the reunion was up in Epping that year, I think 15 or 16. And he and I flew up for it. And that's, Brian Beatty was there with the number 2 car. He was Tyler, and we had the two of them positioned side by side. It was a good looking eyeful. 2 great expectations.
Well, I've been down to Bowling Green now the last 2 years. I keep hoping that you're going to show up down there. I know it's getting harder to travel, but I mean, it's watching, and this year Mike was there, with another car. So it was a lot of fun. I actually got to camp out in Bobby's pit where I was in their mobile home there, with a place to cool down. But it's fun watching these guys, and they made the switch over to they got away from the big block Chevy now, and they're having success. That's got to make you proud of what they're doing.
Oh, yeah, these were the only 2 years I had not been at Bowling Green. Let Diane go. She'd never been to one of his races, and lo and behold, he does well at the Bowling Greens. When she's there, Mom's never been there. Grandma's been there, but yeah, I missed it. But I watched it on TV at home, and heard it on the telephone the minute they got around the corner on the return road. What'd you do? What'd you do?
Well, it was fun hanging out with those guys and seeing this. And then, like the picture that I showed you here, being able to be next to that car for me, I wasn't around during that period of time with the slingshot dragsters and all these beautiful cars that were just works of art going down the drag strip. So it's just a thrill to be able to be by these now.
Yes.
Well, I'm hoping maybe next year, Bowling Green, maybe we can talk you into it.
Oh yeah. God willing, and creek doesn't rise too high, but right now we just need some rain. I'll take the creek rising. Oh, it's
Well,
so dry back here.
it was a lot of fun being able to hang out with, and I kept my cameras, the video and the cameras on the Hilton team all weekend because I had a sneaking suspicion they were going to come out on top of that one. So I might have been accused of playing favorites down there, but hey, I knew where the winner was going to be.
Thanks. Good. Thanks. Yes. Yes. I can remember back Boise about 2 years ago. And that Chevrolet just could not get qualified in a good spot in the field. I think we were lucky to get number 8 spot, And I turned to the crew. I don't know. I wasn't really doing a whole lot because if I'm not mistaken, it was 102 degrees in the pit area that particular day. And I said, boy, I wish this car was a Chrysler, something that would run. And I just sort of said that to the damn motor, thinking maybe it would listen to grandma and act right. Oh, Lord. They would put out a good run, then you try to duplicate it. And it seemed like, oh, no, had a little bit of a mule in it.
Yeah.
It would say, nope, I can't do that for you.
Well, I interviewed Tyler down at Bowling Green 2 years ago, and he said to me, I'm going to win this race even if I blow this car up trying to do it. And sure enough, he did. He blew that car up.
I know. That was a freak thing. Yes, it was.
But anyway, the team, Bobby and Tyler are doing exceptionally well. They are just winning everything right now in the nostalgia ranks. So congratulations to the Great Expectations name for carrying on into 2023, 2024.
Yes, yes. I'm so proud of. I mean, the car has not been defeated in eliminations for, the 3 races. And if you take the 3 qualifying one spring Bakersfield, it's looking pretty good for that fall spring meet when it comes on Friday at Bakersfield. It'd be a real feather in their caps if they can just keep on winning and winning.
So I guess to kind of close this out here, what's Alison Lee doing right now? What do you do with your time? What are you up to these days?
Oh, back here, taking care of Jimmy, and he's doing pretty good. He's 90, and just reading a lot, thinking I'm going to, get lots done for James and Diane in the way of putting together scrapbooks for each of them. It's all in one big scrapbook. So it's trying to divide stuff. Yeah. That's a big thing.
Well, you guys had such a long run, through the 60s and all the way up into the 80s. And a lot of guys, are just lucky to even make it for a decade in the sport. So for you guys to do what you did was a major accomplishment, at least in my mind, it is.
Yes. Oh, no, in my mind too. I look back on it, it's like, God, the stars were lined up the whole time we were racing, pretty much, really.
Well, and it's not an easy thing to do. I mean, you guys are running from track to track to track. You guys are living like rock stars out on the road.
Yeah, I know. It was, it was the start of, I think, something that turned into, the racing today is, of course, so sponsored. It's different. I still like us in the 70s and 80s where everybody just loaded their trailer with all the parts they had and, go to the different meets like Popular Hot Rodding. That was always the meet to go to. It was the meet to go to up there.
Well, things change, and I know the money's gotten into it, and that's a discussion we've all had, is what's happening to the sport we all love. And the fondest memories I have are of match racing in the 70s and into the early 80s before money kind of took over. It's the greatest racing that I remember.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we loaned each other stuff back in those days. I mean, I can remember one of the Indy races, I didn't have enough spare pistons, whatever year it was, we'll say 69, 70, whatever. And I walked down the row and asked Paul Candies, you got some pistons? Because we all had basically the same pistons from Keith Black. He said, yeah, here, take this box. And I said, yeah, just order some from Keith and put it on my tab when you get through this race. I mean, people would loan the other person whatever they needed, help them along. You didn't want to have a buy because they couldn't come up with a part. Yeah. But that was the sport. I mean, we were all friends.
Yeah.
Great friends.
Well, and that's why, like I said to you earlier, getting out to these, hot rod reunions and these events, I like the racing. Don't get me wrong. I like the nostalgia racing and all that, but for me, it's just going down in the pits, and these guys, I had these posters hanging on my wall when I was a kid, and now I'm able to go down in the pits, and there they are, just hanging out, talking like it's no big deal. To me, they're superstars, and to a lot of us, like you guys, Jim and Alison Lee, superstars. So to be able to talk to you guys now is just the thrill of my life.
Oh, thanks.
So
I see your Division II decal there. I love that Division II Buster's Rebels.
oh yeah, of course. And you've got Buster's shirt hanging up over this shoulder here.
No, I see it. Yep.
Still got the black dots all over it from standing at the starting line. So, I appreciate, Alison, I appreciate you coming on, and I'm hoping to be able to run cross paths with you either at Bowling Green or Boise or wherever we cross paths. I want to have the opportunity to see you in person.
Or come out to Bakersfield or come to Tulsa. I plan on going to Tulsa. So
well, there you go.
That's kind of close in between for both of us.
Yeah, that'd work for me.
Yes.
It's been a real treat having you on, and till we cross paths again.
All right. This was great, Randy. I enjoyed it.
All right. Take care, Alison.
Okay. Thanks.